So, good evening, dear students. Welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy. So, in this session, we are going to discuss some current affairs. So, which were asked, which were given, which were important from last 8 months, because the overall focus of this particular session is to make sure that you adequately equip yourself with all relevant current affairs for upcoming State Public Service Commission as well as the UPSC prelims examinations. So the overall objective of this session discussing current affairs is to make sure that you have covered all relevant current affairs and you also confidently attempt all questions which are centered or which are specifically from the current affairs portion. Now, when we talk about the current affairs, so there are multiple subjects, for example, polity and international relations, internal security, space, defense, science and technology. So all these areas, we are going to cover all these areas in a holistic and a very comprehensive manner in this session, right? So from today onwards, every Sunday, we are going to have different sessions specifically discussing current affairs which are relevant for last 8 months, right? So without any further delay, let's get into the discussion and let's get started this discussion. So the first topic that we are going to discuss is about Supreme Court's Legal Services Committee, and very briefly we'll understand what is the Supreme Court's Legal Services Committee, when it was formed, and what are the objectives of it. So that would be enough, right? So when we are discussing these current affairs specifically for prelims examination, so we'll just look into what is what and what is its objective and when it is formed. So recently Supreme Court's judge has been nominated as chairman of the Supreme Court's Legal Services Committee, and because of that reason it is in news. And when we talk about some details with respect to Supreme Court's Legal Services Committee, it is a statutory body. I hope all of you knew what is a statutory body. Statutory body is something which is established, which is formed by a law passed by the Parliament, right? Formed through a parliamentary law, right? So it is being formed through a parliamentary law and it is a statutory body. And in fact, for example, there are a number of statutory bodies. For example, NGT, National Green Tribunal, is known as a statutory body because it was formed through a law passed by the Parliament, right? So for example, National Legal Services Authority, so that is also being formed. NALSA, so that is also being formed by a parliamentary law which was passed way back in the year 1987, and it was formed in the year 2010. So these are all statutory bodies. And in fact, the Supreme Court's Legal Services Committee was constituted under section 3A of Legal Services Authorities Act in 1987 by a National Legal Services Authority. Now what is the objective? So this is very important. You just remember that this is a statutory body and it was constituted under section 3A of Legal Services Authorities Act. So you need to remember this: Legal Services Authorities Act 1987 by a National Legal Services Authority. Now what is the objective of establishing a Supreme Court's Legal Services Committee? When you look into the objective, it provide free legal services to the poor, underprivileged and those marginalized in the society. So that is the objective, right? So providing free legal services. Now when we look into this, Article 39A Directive Principles of State Policy talks about free legal aid, right? So free legal aid, and it is being part of the fundamental directive principles of state policy through a 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act in 1976 when Prime Minister was Indira Gandhi. So Chief Justice of India is known as Patron Chief of this Supreme Court's Legal Services Committee, right? So CJI is considered as Patron Chief of the Legal Services Committee. And when we look into the members of the Supreme Court's Legal Services Committee, the members including chairman, so a sitting judge of the Supreme Court is considered as chairman of this National Supreme Court's Legal Services Committee, and 9 members who are being nominated by the Chief Justice of India. Now, who is the patron chief of committee? So here the patron chief of the committee is Chief Justice of India. So therefore, Chief Justice of India has the primary function or primary responsibility of nominating 9 members to the Supreme Court's Legal Services Committee. So I hope you have understood this very clearly. And so second topic is Supreme Court annuls remission in Bilkis Bano case. Now this Bilkis Bano case is a very famous case in India. So we are going to understand what is this Bilkis Bano case and what is remission and why Supreme Court annuls or cancels this remission in Bilkis Bano case. We'll try to understand this in a very detailed manner, so that will be helpful for your examination. For example, suppose if there is a question on Bilkis Bano case, so what is this Bilkis Bano case and what are the aspects that it actually deals with? So you need to answer, right? So you should be in a position to answer such questions, right? So in fact, Bilkis Bano case is a very famous case. Supreme Court held that Gujarat is not appropriate government to decide remission petition, right? So in fact, all of you knew about this Godhra riots that took place in Gujarat between Hindus and Muslims, right? So a lot of people were died in the incident of communal violence in Godhra. So Supreme Court has held that Gujarat is not appropriate government because, you know, at that point of time BJP was in power when this Godhra riots took place, and now also in Gujarat BJP government took place, and in fact Hindu community is being accused of committing these large-scale riots and even killing and murder, rape of Muslim people. So because of that reason, the Supreme Court has held that Gujarat government is not appropriate government to decide the remission petition, as the trial was conducted in Maharashtra, thus remission orders were held invalid. Okay, so because Bilkis Bano was a Muslim woman, and the accusations or the allegations were that a group of Hindu men committed a rape or raped a Muslim woman named Bilkis Bano, right? So therefore recently a petition was filed to grant remission to the convicts of this Bilkis Bano rape, right? So but Supreme Court has held that Gujarat state government is not an appropriate authority, not an appropriate government to decide on the remission petition of the convicts of this Bilkis Bano case. So remission refers, so we'll try to understand what is the meaning of remission, right? So this is very important. So what is remission? This is important from the polity perspective also. So remission means a reduction in period of sentence that has been imposed on a person. For example, imagine that convicts of Bilkis Bano case were awarded 15 years of rigorous imprisonment of 15 years. So under remission, the punishment can be reduced to maybe 5 years of rigorous imprisonment. So that is known as remission, right? So in fact, there are a lot of such types of pardon available. For example, remission respite, and reprieve and pardon. So a lot of such types of pardoning powers are being granted by the constitution to both president and the governor, by the Indian constitution itself. So therefore this is remission, and Supreme Court has clearly held that a state government is not an appropriate authority to grant remission under the Bilkis Bano case. So I hope you have understood what exactly is remission means, right? So the state may release the convicts early under its remission policy, right? Gujarat state government may release the convicts under this Bilkis Bano case way before. Now there are certain constitutional provisions, because as I've already told you that there are certain pardoning powers which are being granted to both president as well as the governor. So therefore the constitution has mentioned several provisions regarding this. So we'll try to understand. So Article 72 of the Indian Constitution, you just remember that Article 72 of the Indian Constitution, so it empowers the president to grant certain grants such as reprieves, respite, suspend, remit, or even commute the sentence of person who is convicted of any offense throughout India. Right, so you have to remember Article 72 of the Constitution as well as Article 161 of the Indian Constitution. So these two articles are very, very important, Article 72 as well as 161. But when it comes to Article 161, so it is with respect to governor and it is with respect to the president, right? So it is with respect to the president. So Article 161 empowers governor with a similar power such as, reprieves, respite, suspend, remit, and all these powers are being granted to that of president, but limited to a matter to which executive power of state extends. Now one thing that you need to understand, that the power of the president to grant pardons extends throughout India, but on the other hand governor's power limits to state's executive power, right? So to whichever jurisdiction that state executive power extends to, so to that jurisdiction governor can actually commute or remit the sentences. So Supreme Court's verdict on remission. So what is Supreme Court's verdict on remission, right? So when we talk about this Lakshman Naskar versus Union of India case in the year 2000, Supreme Court laid down 5 grounds on which remission is to be considered. Now, so this case is also very, very important to understand, right? As I've already told you that what is remission, we have understood remission, right? So remission is reducing the sentence of already convicted prisoners. For example, so I've also explained this remission with an example, but in the year 2000 Supreme Court in a specific called Lakshman Naskar versus Union of India, okay, Lakshman Naskar versus Union of India case in the year 2000 laid down as 5 grounds which remission is to be considered by either governor or the president. So what are those 5 grounds? So I think it is not important to remember all these 5 grounds for your prelims examination, but you just remember this Lakshman Naskar versus Union of India case with respect to this Bilkis Banu judgment. So if you look at those 5 grounds which are laid down by the Supreme Court, include the offense affects the society at a large and probability of crime being repeated and potential of victim or of convict to commit crime in future, if any purpose is being served by keeping convict in prison, and socio-economic conditions of the convict's family. So these are 5 grounds based on which remission has to be considered as laid down by the Supreme Court in Lakshman Naskar versus Union of India case. So I hope you have understood this in a very detailed manner, and that would be enough, right? So the next topic is about a panel for equitable distribution of benefits amongst scheduled castes is being appointed. So we'll talk about this because scheduled caste and scheduled tribes are very, very important for your exam. So there is a high probability that questions are being asked from these 2 different socio-economic groups. So right, so there are a lot of benefits from state governments and central governments being accrued to the scheduled caste as well as scheduled tribes, but the problem is equitable distribution of those benefits. So in order to ensure that these benefits are equitably distributed across all these different groups, so what the government has done, the government has established a panel for equitable distribution of benefits among the scheduled caste, right? So the committee was constituted under a cabinet secretary, and this particular committee will form a methodology to ensure fair distribution of benefits and initiatives among or over 1,200 scheduled castes nationwide that have crowded out relatively forward ones. And in fact, this particular panel for equitable distribution of benefits for scheduled castes cannot delve into questions of reservation. Its constitution holds a significance owing to the demand of subcategorization of scheduled castes. So we'll understand what is subcategorization of scheduled castes and even subcategorization of other backward classes as well. And in fact, Justice Rohini, so we have discussed several times about this Justice Rohini Committee. So Justice Rohini Committee is being appointed for the subcategorization of the other backward classes. Now what is this subcategorization of other backward classes? On similar lines, the Supreme Court has also given directives to the center for the subcategorization of scheduled caste as well. Now in fact, when we talk about OBCs are known as socially and educationally backward classes. So since they are socially and educationally backward classes, there were numerous castes which are being part of the other backward classes, right? So around we could say more than 500 different castes are being part of the other backward classes. But on the other hand, the level of social backwardness and educational backwardness is not same among all these 115. So 1500 castes, right? So for example, there are certain forward castes. We can say that Yadavs are one of the most progressive castes within the other backward classes. But as of now, as per the Mandal Commission recommendations, 27% of the reservation is being granted homogeneously to all 1500 castes within the OBCs. But most of the reservation benefits are taken by the progressive caste like Yadavs. A very limited number of benefits are being accrued or being distributed to the lower caste within the OBCs, right? So if we subcategorize all the castes within the OBCs based on their social backwardness, economic backwardness and educational backwardness, so there is also a chance for subcategorization of reservations within this 27% reservation would be further subcategorized. For example, the lowest rung of the lowest rung within the OBCs would get around 5% of reservations, and so that subcategorization will ensure there will be an equitable distribution of benefits among all scheduled castes, and that is the objective of subcategorization of OBCs. And in order to do the subcategorization of OBCs, Justice Rohini Commission was established. Now, what are the legal precedents for the subcategorization of SCs? So how much reservation is being provided for the scheduled caste? So 15% of the reservation is provided for the scheduled caste in education as well as government employment. In government employment and education, around 15% of the reservation is being provided. So therefore, there are certain castes which are backward. For example, in Telangana there are two different castes such as Mala and Madika. So Mala caste is a progressive caste within SCs. Most of the benefits are taken by the particular caste, but on the other hand, the Madika caste is considered as backward caste. So in this context, there are also certain legal precedents and there are also demands for the subcategorization of SCs to make sure that benefits would be distributed equitably across all these segments. So there are certain legal precedents for the subcategorization of SCs. So E.V. Chinnaya versus State of Andhra Pradesh. Right, so in this particular case, the Supreme Court has held that subcategorization of scheduled caste by state is violative of the right to equality as well as Article 341 of the Indian Constitution. So Article 341 deals with the scheduled caste, and in fact you have to remember this E.V. Chinnaya versus State of Andhra Pradesh case, because there may be a question which is asked, which of the following cases of the Supreme Court deals with the subcategorization of scheduled castes, right? So you just have to remember E.V. Chinnaya versus State of Andhra Pradesh case. Now what is Article 341, because this is also very important from your exam point of view. So Article 341 gives President the power to create a list of scheduled caste communities for reservation, right? So President have the power to prepare a list of scheduled caste for the purpose of reservation. And in fact, there is also another very important case that you must remember this case as well. So that case is Jarnail Singh versus Lachami Narayan Gupta 2018 case. So in this particular case, Supreme Court has upheld the concept of creamy layer within scheduled caste 2 for reservation and promotion. Now when we talk about the creamy layer, as of now this creamy layer is only applicable for the other backward classes. So creamy layer is not yet being applied to scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. So I hope you knew about this scheduled caste, so this creamy layer concept. So creamy layer means within these backward castes. So there are a certain, for example, imagine that among OBCs, imagine that there is one particular caste. For example, Yadavs is one caste within OBCs. So now imagine that there is a family and the family income is above 8 lakh. So in that case, since family income is above 8 lakh, that family is no longer considered as backward, and 27% of the reservation benefit will not be given for the progressive caste within the OBCs. So understand one thing, that as of now the creamy layer concept is only applicable for the OBCs. So it is not applicable for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. However, there are demands to introduce the creamy layer concept within the scheduled caste as well. Supreme Court in Jarnail Singh versus Lachami Narayan Gupta case 2018 asked the center to introduce the concept of creamy layer within the scheduled caste as well. So understand one thing that you need to remember, both E.V. Chennaiya versus State of Andhra Pradesh case as well as Jarnail Singh versus Lachami Narayan Gupta 2018 case as well. And the next topic that we are going to discuss is about MPLDS e-Sakshi mobile application, right? So what is this MPLDS, right? So Member of Parliament Local Area Development Scheme. Member of Parliament Local Area Development Scheme is MPLDS scheme. Now under this scheme, so a certain portion of money is being given to both Lok Sabha MP as well as the Rajya Sabha MP, so that for example 2 crore would be given for each MP for every year, and those funds given to the MPs and MLAs would be used to recommend works in their respective constituencies. So first try to understand what is this MPLDS. So there are parliamentarians, both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and to those parliamentarians around 5 crore or 2 crore would be given as a money. So per year 5 crore per year would be granted under MPLDS scheme. So those 5 crore would be used to recommend works in their respective constituencies. So you can go through this. So member of parliament usually recommend works based on the local needs of the selected constituency, and a district authority or the district collector will be given the responsibility to sanction funds for these eligible works, and they also select the implementation agency for undertaking these works and also responsible for the implementation, and each MP will be given 5 crore annually per year to do those works, right? So that's how the MPLDS scheme work, and in fact it is under the administrative jurisdiction of Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. So this is very, very important, you have to understand. So MPLDS scheme under the administrative jurisdiction, or it was launched by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, and that allows member of parliaments to propose, track and also oversee projects under the Member of Parliament Local Area Development Program. Now here you need to understand what is MPLDS scheme. I hope you have understood this, and which ministry has launched this, and under which ministry's administrative jurisdiction this MPLDS scheme works. Now what is this MPLDS scheme? We'll try to understand this. So it is a central sector scheme under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. And in fact the MPLDS funds will be used to create a durable community assets in areas of drinking water, primary education, etc. So at least 15% of MPLDS entitlements are allocated for areas inhabited by scheduled caste population, and 7.5% of the areas inhabited by the ST population. For example, imagine that the 15% of 5 crore would be used for areas where scheduled caste population live in a constituency, and 7.5% of 5 crore would be used for scheduled tribe population in that particular constituency. You should also remember this, and in fact these funds are non-lapsable. So what does it mean when they say that these funds are non-lapsable? For example, imagine that if fund is not utilized, it gets carried to the next year. For example, all MPs may not be able to recommend work worth of 5 crore. For example, one MP spent a maximum of 3 crore for the works. So what about the remaining 5 crore which are being granted to this parliamentarian by the by this particular scheme? And next year he will be granted 5 crore, and these 2 crore will be carried forward for the next year, total 7 crore. And now MP has 7 crore worth of work to recommend, and district authority must inspect at least 10% of the all work under the implementation year. So this is how the MP large scheme usually work. And the next article that we're going to discuss, the next topic that we're going to discuss is Social Audit Advisory Board. So we'll try to understand what exactly is this Social Audit Advisory Board, which is also known as SAAB. And in fact, the Social Audit Advisory Board was established by National Institute of Social Defense. National Institute of Social Defense has established Social Audit Advisory Board. So remember that this is very, very important. And in fact, this National Institute of Social Defense functions under the Department of Social Justice and Empowerment under overall administrative jurisdiction of Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. So this is the ministry under which the National Institute of Social Defense usually work, right? So it will guide the ministry in institutionalizing social audit for various schemes, and it also promotes capacity building for the members of social justice cell of the social audit units. Now we'll try to understand what is this social audit, what is the concept of the social audit. Now social audit is actually a process of examination and assessment of the programs and various schemes which are already launched, and it is conducted with active involvement of people and comparing official records with actual ground realities. And key guiding principles of this social audit include access to information, that is known as jankari, participation, which is also known as bhagidari, and protection of citizens, which is suraksha. So these are the key areas with which the social audit regularly deals with, but you need to remember that this Social Audit Advisory Board is set up under National Institute of Social Defense, and it is under the administrative jurisdiction of Department of Social Justice and Implementation. Now how this social audit is being implemented. For example, Manrega is a very important program, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. So this Manrega scheme ensures income security for the rural poor. We all knew about that, and it also prevents the rural urban migration, and it also ensures that the poverty is alleviated in those respective rural areas, and it also helps creating community assets. But social audit in such large impact schemes is very, very important, and Union government has introduced provisions of social audit in many flagship programs. One such program is Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. So in such programs, when Manrega is being implemented, it ensures transparency as well as accountability, in such programs. And in fact, it is also very, very important that Meghalaya is the first state to operationalize or successfully operationalize this social audit law. So you have to remember this, Meghalaya is the first state to operationalize social audit law. Now what is the significance of implementation of social audit? As I have already told you that it promotes transparency and accountability, and it would also strengthen institutions at the grassroots level, and it also checks or prevents corruption. And there are certain challenges. What are those challenges? When we look into those challenges, lack of awareness among the stakeholders and apathetic attitude of implementing agency. So these are all the certain implementation challenges under the social audit program, but you no need to remember this, just remember this Meghalaya. And in fact in a large impact schemes such as Manrega, the social audit is being implemented. So the next topic that we are going to discuss is about a street vendors protection of livelihood and regulation of street vending act 2014. So such legislations are also very important. You may get questions on these legislations as well, right? So we'll try to understand what is the street vendors protection of livelihood and regulation of street vending act 2014, its salient and key features. So this act was passed in 2014 by the parliament, and what is the objective of bringing such a law is to protect the rights of street vendors, right? So street vendors also have certain rights, and they are vulnerable people, and in fact they operate at a very small scale, very large scale, and therefore there is a need to protect the rights of the street vendors. Now in fact every street vendor shall have the right to carry on the business of street vending activities as per the terms and conditions which are being mentioned in the certificate of vending, right? So it also mandates certain duties of street vendors. So one thing that you need to remember, that there may be a question that this particular legislation is passed in which year, right? So you have to remember that this legislation is being passed in the year 2014. Now what are the duties of street vendors? So remove his goods and wares every day at the end of the time sharing period allowed to him, and maintain cleanliness and also public hygiene in vending zones and adjoining areas, and also maintaining civic amenities and also public property in the vending zone in good condition, and town vending committees. Now it is very important that you need to remember these town vending committees are being established through which of the following legislation. So you need to mention that Street Vendors Protection of Livelihood and Regulation of Street Vending Act 2014 has provided for the establishment of these town vending committees. And what are the primary functions of these town vending committees? They are to be established in each local authority, and these committees are in charge of enumerating, identifying, and even allocating vending zones in a city. And in fact the ceiling limit on the number of vendors, it is set at 2.5% of the population of ward or zone or town city accommodating the vendors in the respective vending zones, right? So this is also very important provision of this particular legislation that you must remember this. And for example, it has also provided for the grievance redressal committees as well. And if the street vendors having any grievances, so these grievance redressal committees would look into those grievances and they also solve those respective grievances. And in fact these grievance redressal committees are being established by the respective state governments under the chairmanship of a retired judicial officer to maintain impartiality towards grievances of street vendors, right? So there are certain challenges, for example lopsided implementation of these provisions, because only 17 states have implemented this, and also lack of uniformity in the implementation of this particular legislation is also another major problem. And in fact, in order to ensure welfare of street vendors, so issuance of smart cards with integrate the details of vendor ID cards and certificate of vending will also be provided. And it is also very important that we need to sensitize the law enforcement agencies, particularly the police force and even the officials of the local bodies, so about the Street Vending Act and the rights that are being provided to the street vendors. So in order to make sure that these street vendors are adequately aware themselves about the provisions of this particular act. Okay, so you can also go through some data on this, but it is not that much important, right? So particularly for prelims examination. And the next very important article topic that we are going to discuss is that India makes first crude oil payment to United Arab Emirates in rupees. Right? So why it is a significance, right? So why it is a very important that, for example, we all knew that India imports crude oil from different countries, mostly from Middle East. But in recent times we also started importing the crude oil from Russia as well. So natural gas and crude oil is being imported mostly from the Middle Eastern countries such as Iran, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, so all those respective countries. Since we have very good relations with the United Arab Emirates, now India tried to make payments in rupees. So earlier we used to make payments in US dollars. For example, whatever crude oil that we import from most of these Middle Eastern countries, because we all knew that US dollar is accepted as international currency, is mostly accepted as international currency, and in fact it is a medium of transaction for imports and exports for different countries. And if we import crude oil from any country, particularly imagine that we wanted to import crude oil from UAE, we must pay UAE in US dollars because it is being accepted as an international currency. But recently both India and UAE have this memorandum of understanding, and there is an agreement that if we wanted to import crude oil from UAE, so we can pay UAE in dollars instead of, so in rupees instead of dollars. For example, now we need a lot of dollars, right? So we need a lot of dollars to import crude oil. Crude oil is very important, right? So crude oil is very important for our economy. So even if we wanted to import crude oil, we need to have a huge forex reserves with us. But on the other hand, it would be easier for us to make payments in rupees if any country allows to do so. So UAE is the first country with which we are going to make the payments in rupees for the crude oil imports from UAE. So you have to remember this, with which country we are going to make payments in rupees for the import of crude oil, that is UAE. You just remember this, it is UAE. And in fact it is part of India's broader efforts to further diversify the oil supplies. Now, diversification of oil supplies means that we don't want it to depend on one single country for our oil imports. We want it to depend on multiple countries. So diversification of oil imports will certainly benefit us. For example, if we have a predominant dependence on one single country for oil imports, suddenly tomorrow something happens in that particular country. For example, a war erupts, so the oil supplies would be completely disrupted. So we don't want that. So diversification, so having multiple suppliers of crude oil, will essentially benefit us to establish rupee as an international trade for settlement of currency. Now, payment in rupees for crude oil from United Arab Emirates is as per the agreement which was being signed by these two different countries in the year 2022, right? So there was a memorandum of understanding and there was an agreement between India and UAE to supply the crude oil to India, and in return India will make payments to UAE in rupees. So this will boost India's efforts to cut transaction costs by eliminating dollar conversions. So we don't need dollars to make payments to UAE, so that will reduce the demand for dollars, and that will also help preventing further sliding down of Indian rupee as well, right? So there are certain initiatives which are being taken by the India for the internationalization of rupee. Now, what does it mean when we say internationalization of rupee? For example, how dollar is being accepted as an international currency, there are certain attempts from Indian side also to internationalize the rupee as well. So how can we internationalize the rupee? For example, in July 2022, RBI has allowed trade settlement in rupees through a special Vostro accounts. So this is very, very important that you have to remember that there are certain special Vostro accounts which are being created for the facilitation or trade settlement in rupees. And in fact, we also have a lot of currency swap agreements with countries such as Sri Lanka, Maldives. So the currency swap agreements with these countries particularly to promote internationalization of rupees and also allowing issuance of offshore rupee dominated masala bonds. Now you have to remember what are the Vostro accounts. What are these special Vostro accounts? So these special Vostro accounts are being created for the internationalization of rupee, and we also have the currency swap agreements with countries like Sri Lanka and Maldives, and we also allowed the offshore rupee denominated bonds such as masala bonds as well. So these are all important things to remember. And second thing that we need to discuss is about report which is titled Trade Policy Tools for Climate Action, released by World Trade Organization. Now here one thing that you should remember is that the report Trade Policy Tools for Climate Action, released by which of the following organizations. So that's how the nature of questions are being asked, right? So a report titled Trade Policy Tools for Climate Action is released by which of the following organizations? So it is being released by the World Trade Organization. And in fact, the report Trade Policy Tools for Climate Action covers 10 trade policy areas that governments could consider as part of their strategies to promote sustainable development and even support the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, COP27, Conference of Parties 27, climate mitigation efforts, right? Now understand one thing, that how trade has been one of the leading cause of climate change, right? So how it has been leading to climate change. So we have a lot of climate obligations and climate commitments, and World Trade Organization is an agency which primarily deals with the trade between different countries or group of countries, right? So therefore, in order to make sure that climate change trade will not leads to climate change and global warming, and trade will also ensure that the commitments and the obligations of these countries can be adequately met. So what World Trade Organization has done? World Trade Organization has published a report that covers 10 trade policy areas that governments can actually consider as per their strategies, right? So it will, over a period of time, promote sustainable development, as well as it also supports United Nations Framework Conventions, Conference of Parties 28, climate mitigation strategies, right? For example, the major trade policy tools that it considers include the trade facilitation. Okay, so trade facilitation primarily ensured, or it can be done through speed of customs clearances and reducing the greenhouse gas emissions and associated custom procedures, all those things. And regulations and certification would be further liberalized, so to avoid regulatory fragmentation when upgrading the energy efficient. For example, imagine that any industry, any company which wanted to upgrade themselves to energy efficient methods, right? So wait, yeah, sorry about this. So I think some technical issue has occurred. Yeah, sorry about this. So because of some issues, right? So for example, if there is any company which wanted to upgrade itself to the energy efficient methods and energy efficient technologies, so there is no need for any technical regulatory framework or regulatory fragmentation. So that ensures, that enables the company to adopt itself to the adapt itself to the climate obligations or climate commitments. And import tariffs, so accelerate transition to the green economies. Now what does it mean, accelerating a country's industries into green economy, or making a transition towards greener economy of different countries, is to one thing that we need to understand, that as of now most of the companies, most of the industries are depending on the fossil fuels, right? So they are heavily dependent on fossil fuels. So fossil fuels release emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, right? So greenhouse gas emissions, and greenhouse gas emissions are responsible for global warming, and global warming has been causing climate change. So therefore transition essentially means that these companies and industries should switch themselves to renewable energy, and as well as energy efficient technologies or energy efficient methods as well. So these things have to be achieved by making a transition or making a shift. And also we need to talk about the subsidies. So subsidies means unlock additional resources to assist climate action by reforming environmentally harmful support measures. And sanitary and phytosanitary measures. Now what are these sanitary and phytosanitary measures? So these are also known as certain roadblocks or barriers to trade. So how these are considered as barriers to trade? So sanitary and phytosanitary measures are also known as barriers to trade. For example, we need to take an example of trade between India and UAE. European Union and India. Now we have a free trade agreement between India and European Union. So under free trade agreement, India can export a lot of goods into the European Union without having any tariff. So there is no need for any tariffs if India export goods to European Union. So while entering Indian goods to European Union, there is no need for tariffs. But on the other hand, EU has a certain standards. For example, those standards are known as sanitary and phytosanitary measures. So EU actually test the standards or test the quality of the products, which are being exported to the European. For example, we export shrimp to European Union. Now what European Union will do? European Union will do a comprehensive check of the quality and standard of this shrimp. So in case if any any antibiotics are being used, any chemicals are being used in the cultivation of this shrimp, so European Union can reject this shrimp. Okay, so that is known as sanitary and phytosanitary measures. And sanitary and phytosanitary measures also reduce the export potential of different goods from countries like India and other developing countries in the global south to these developed countries, by thereby reducing the overall export to these respective countries. Okay, so these are all different tools which are being covered by the World Trade Organization's trade policy tools for climate action report. And the next topic that we are going to discuss, it is also a very important topic, that 1 year of India-Australia Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement. So it is also known as India-Australia Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement. So we have economic cooperation and trade agreement with Australia, and in the same year we also have the economic cooperation and trade agreement with the United Arab Emirates also. So first of all, we need to look into this economic cooperation and trade agreement with the Australia. So India-Australia Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement was the first trade agreement of India with a developed country, signed more than a decade in the year April 2022, and it entered into force December 2022. So this is very important that you need to remember this, okay, because it is the first free trade agreement of India with a developed country. So this point has to be remembered, a first free trade agreement of India with any developed country, and it was signed in April. Remember that in this exam the dates and even months are being asked, the years are being asked. So it was signed after more than a decade in April 2022, and it entered into force in December 2022. And in fact, the economic cooperation and trade agreement also provides an institutional mechanism to encourage and even improve trade between two different countries. Now, what are the key features of India and Australia economic cooperation and trade agreement? So it has certain key features as well. Now, when we look into those key features, so India will benefit from preferential market access, which is being provided by Australia on 100% percentage of its tariff lines. So that includes key export sectors such as gems, textiles, and even footwear. And in fact, Australia gets a preferential access to over 70% of the India's tariff lines, and that includes raw materials, intermediaries such as coal, mineral ores, and even wines. And in fact, the economic cooperation and trade agreement between India and Australia also covers different other areas such as rules of origin, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, so all those things. So I hope I've already explained what are the sanitary and phytosanitary measures as well. But one thing that you need to remember, that Australia Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement was signed in April 2022 and it came into existence in the year December 2022. And the other thing that you need to remember in this is that it is a first free trade agreement of India with any developed country, and that is being signed with Australia. And the next topic is Union Cabinet has approved 1250 crore for India's participation in the Square Kilometre Array Observatory project. So we'll understand what is this Square Kilometre Observatory Array project and what are its crucial benefits and advantages and when it was launched. And the Square Kilometre Array Observatory project is an intergovernmental organization. What is an intergovernmental organization? So it is an initiative where multiple nations and their governments would participate, and in fact the overall objective of Square Kilometre Array Observatory is dedicated for the purpose of radio astronomy, and it was headquartered in the United Kingdom, right? So it was headquartered in the United Kingdom, and the Square Kilometre Array Observatory will consist of one global observatory, and it operates 2 telescopes across 3 different sites. Okay. And right, so you have to remember this, that India is also part of this Square Kilometre Observatory project, and it is being dedicated to radio astronomy, and it has its headquarters in the United Kingdom. And Square Kilometre Observatory Array Observatory will consist of a large global observatory and operating 2 telescopes across 3 different sites. And in fact, two telescopes, Square Kilometre Observatory Array telescopes, will be at radio quiet sites in South Africa and Australia. So you have to remember this as well. The Square Kilometre Observatory Array project, 2 telescopes are located in South Africa as well as Australia, and in fact they will operate as one single large unit, and they are expected to be operationalized by the year 2029. Remember one thing, that they're not yet operationalized and they are expected to be operationalized by 2029. And in fact, India has become part of this Square Kilometre Observatory Array in the year 2012. So you should also remember this. In the year 2012, India became part of the Square Kilometre Array Observatory as an associate member and has effectively participated in the pre-construction phase of the Square Kilometre Observatory Array. And in the year 2022, the National Center for Radio Astronomy, Pune, and Square Kilometre Array Observatory signed cooperation agreement, and Giant Meter Wave Radio Telescope, which is also known as GMRT, is playing a role as Square Kilometre Observatory Array. So these are some details, but in this you need to remember from the exam point of view that the Square Kilometre Observatory Array Observatory, so headquartered in United Kingdom, and it is being dedicated for radio astronomy, and it consists of 2 telescopes. So these 2 telescopes are part of radio quiet sites. One is at South Africa and other is at Australia, and India became part of the Square Kilometre Observatory Array in the year 2012 as an associate member, and since then India actively participated in this. And in the year 2022, National Center for Radio Astronomy, Pune, and the Square Kilometre Array Observatory signed a cooperation agreement as well. And the next topic which is very important for our discussion is about snow leopard. So we'll try to understand what is this snow leopard. And so recently a Central Asian country, which is Kyrgyzstan. So you should also identify the location of Kyrgyzstan. So it is also very important. So recently Kyrgyzstan has acknowledged that snow leopard. So snow leopard as a national symbol, and snow leopard often termed as ghost of mountains. So which of the following mountain can be termed as ghost of mountain? So that is how the nature of questions are being framed. So which animal is being known as or being termed as the ghost of mountain? The answer is snow leopard. Now snow leopard is often termed as the ghost of mountains, and it is closely related to the tiger species, and the scientific name of snow leopard is Panthera uncia. And what are the features of the snow leopard species? And in fact it has a smoky colored coats tinted with cream and yellow shades and patterned with black spots as well, and the spots are called rosettes, which is unique to every snow leopard. Right, so it is being unique to every snow leopard. And when we talk about the habitat of snow leopard, so snow leopard habitat has been spread across different countries. For example, the range countries, which are being called as range countries, there are 12 snow leopard range countries. So they include most of the countries in Central Asia, including South Asia as well, because India has a large Himalayan ecosystem, and Himalayan ecosystem has also provide suitable conditions for the sustenance and survival of the snow leopards. So it's 12 snow leopard range countries, including Afghanistan, Bhutan, China, India, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Mongolia, Nepal, Pakistan, Russia, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. And in fact China has world's largest snow leopard population. So that is one thing that you need to remember here. So China is a country which has the largest snow leopard population, and this is how snow leopard looks. And in fact there are 12 range countries including India which are the potential habitat for the snow leopard. And apart from that, few more things that you need to understand here. Snow leopard is the state animal of the Union Territory of Ladakh as well as the state of Himachal Pradesh in India. And when we talk about the conservation status as per IUCN, it is vulnerable animal. And in fact, so snow leopard is also part of the Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. So we have Wildlife Protection Act. So based on the vulnerability of these different animals, so these animals are being categorized into different classes, right? So based on their risk, their importance, their vulnerability. So in fact Schedule 1 means highest protection being accorded, right? So highest protection is being provided to the snow leopard under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, and its conservation status is vulnerable. So it's state animal of Himachal Pradesh and Union Territory of Ladakh as well. And next important article that we are going to discuss is about Worli Tribe and Worli paintings. And in fact remember that UPSC has also asked about Worli paintings previously, right? So we'll understand what are these Worli paintings. So Worli tribes has set up an example of peaceful existence with leopards near Sanjay Gandhi National Park in Maharashtra. So here one thing that we need to remember, that where is this Worli tribe is located, and Worli tribe is located in Sanjay Gandhi National Park of Maharashtra. The Sanjay Gandhi National Park is located in Maharashtra, and Worli tribe is known for the peaceful coexistence with leopards in Sanjay Gandhi National Park, Maharashtra. And in fact, so the Worli tribe worship leopard or Waghoba as a deity. And so when we talk about the Worli tribe, so the Worli tribe is among the largest tribal population in the state of Maharashtra, and they also live in the outskirts of Mumbai in the northern Sahyadri region. Now in Maharashtra also there are Western Ghats, and Western Ghats in Maharashtra are being called as Sahyadri mountains, right? So they are being called as Sahyadris. And in fact, so the Worli tribe is very well known for Worli wall paintings, and this is how Worli wall paintings look like? Worli wall painting look like? And there was also UPSC prelims question on this Worli wall paintings as well. And in fact, this art form can be tracked back to 10th century AD. And in fact, so Worli wall paintings generally takes inspiration from normal life routine and the surroundings of the people, and natural materials are being used in this Worli wall paintings with bamboo and brushes, and natural colors are also being used. So mostly the natural things are being used for creating this Worli wall paintings. So you need to remember the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, which is located in Maharashtra, and Worli Tribe. So they are known for peaceful coexistence with leopards, because they consider leopards as their deities. And in fact, Worli Tribe are very famous for Worli wall paintings, and they are located in the northern part, outskirts of Mumbai, in northern Sahyadri region. Okay. So the next article is that, so India to use SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket to launch communication satellite GSAT-20 in the year 2024, right? So there was an organization called New Space India Limited that was created for the commercialization of the spin-off technologies that are being with ISRO, right? For also taking up a lot of activities of ISRO, the New Space India Limited is being launched. So we'll try to understand a few things about the New Space India Limited, and then we come back into the article. So this New Space India Limited was incorporated in March 2019, and in fact it is a commercial arm of Indian Space Research Organization. And the New Space India Limited is a central public sector enterprises, so it is under the Department of Space. And presently the New Space India, so one thing that you need to remember, when was New Space India Limited was created? It was created in the year 2019. And what is the abbreviation of New Space India Limited? So so what is NSIL? So it is New Space India Limited, and it is a commercial arm of ISRO, and it is a public sector enterprise under Department of Space. And presently the New Space India Limited owns and operates 11 communication satellites which are in orbit. Now, what is the mandate of this New Space India Limited? So it also has its own mandate, for example, owning satellites for Earth observation and also communication applications, and providing launch services for various satellites, and satellite building through Indian industry, and technology transfer for the Indian industry. So these are certain mandate for the New Space India Limited. So I hope you have understood what is this New Space India Limited, and we'll get back into this topic that for the first time the New Space India Limited will launch its communication satellite on SpaceX rocket. So we all knew that SpaceX is a space firm of Elon Musk in US, right? So what is this GSAT-20? So this satellite is going to be launched into the space by the SpaceX rocket. And in fact, the GSAT-20 is also renamed as GSAT-N2. In fact, the GSAT-20 is also a high throughput Ka band satellite, and that will be fully owned and operated and funded by New Space India Limited. The satellite weighing around 4,700 kg, right? So it is a 4,700 kg satellite that has been specifically designed to meet the demanding services needs of remote sensing as well as the unconnected underserved areas. And in fact, it is a much heavier communication satellite than the launch capacity of ISRO's. So as of now, the most powerful rocket that ISRO has is LVM-3. Okay, so LVM-3 is the most powerful rocket that ISRO has as of now. So that can launch satellites weighing up to 4,000 kg into the geosynchronous transfer orbit, right? So they can launch satellites into geosynchronous transfer orbit, so 4,000 kilograms of the satellites. Okay, so as of now LVM-3 can launch only 4,000 kilograms of satellites into geosynchronous orbit, but this GSAT satellite is going to weight 4,700 kgs, and because of that reason the New Space India Limited is planning to launch GSAT-20 through the SpaceX rocket. Okay, so I hope you have understood this. And the next topic is that PM inaugurates Kochi, which is located in Kerala, Kochi Lakshadweep Island Submarine Optical Fiber Connection Project. So where is this Lakshadweep Islands are located? So Lakshadweep Islands are also a chain of islands located off the coast of western coast of India, near to Kochi, and south of the Lakshadweep Islands we can also see Maldives located somewhere in this place. And recently there is also a diplomatic face-off between India and Maldives when the new government came to power, but recently Prime Minister Narendra Modi also inaugurated Kochi, so that is located somewhere in Kerala. So Kochi Lakshadweep Island Submarine Optical Fiber Connection Project, which is also known as KLI project. Okay, so for the first time since independence, Lakshadweep will be connected through a submarine optic fiber cable that will ensure a paradigm shift in communication infrastructure. Now, how it will ensure a paradigm shift in communication infrastructure? Now we'll understand what is this Kochi Lakshadweep Island Submarine Optical Fiber Connection Project. Okay, so under this project, submarine cable connectivity from mainland Kochi to 11 Lakshadweep Islands. So in fact, one thing that you need to remember is that there are different islands which are, so there is an island chain which is being part of the Lakshadweep. So therefore, under this KLI project, a submarine cable connectivity from mainland Kochi to 11 Lakshadweep Islands would be connected with a comprehensive internet connectivity. And this project is funded by, you need to remember this project is funded by Universal Services Obligation Fund, Digital Bharat Nidhi and Department of Telecommunication. So Bharat Sanchar Nigam Limited, BSNL, was the project executive agency. Okay, so in this article, so you need to remember, so yes, so Bharat Sanchar Nigam Limited, BSNL, was the project executing agency. And you should also remember the other thing about this is that it is being funded by Universal Service Obligation Fund, Digital Bharat Nidhi, Department of Telecommunication. So next article that we are going to discuss is about Rani Vel Nachiyar. So Rani Vel Nachiyar is also equated with Rani Jhansi Lakshmi Bai, of Jhansi. So she Rani Velu Nachiyar from Tamil Nadu. Okay, so she was princess of Ramanathapuram, Tamil Nadu, and a child of Raja Ramanand Kingdom. So Raja of Ramanand Kingdom's child, and she was known by Tamils as Veera Mangai. Okay, so she was well known as Veera Mangai by the Tamils, and she was proficient in various languages such as French, English and Urdu. So she was well known and very proficient in these languages, and Velu Nachiyar was contemporary of Hyder Ali. Okay, so Hyder Ali was the king of Mysore. And what are the contributions because of which she was known as, she was very famous, Rani Velu Nachiyar. So she was the first queen to have ever actively opposed the British rule, and in collaboration with Hyder Ali, Gopal Naikar, she waged a war against British. Okay, so at that point of time India was under the colonial rule, and in collaboration with Hyder Ali and Gopal Naikar, she waged a war against Hyder Ali, and she was the first queen to have actively opposed the British rule. So she went on to produce first human bomb, and she also established the first army which is trained by the women soldiers as well. So because of all these reasons, she is well known as the very famous personality in Tamil, and she was also very well equated with Rani Lakshmi Bai of Jhansi, and she also inherited Shivagangai kingdom for her husband, right? So she was Rani Velu Nachiyar. So there may be a question that Rani Velu Nachiyar, a princess of Ramanathapuram from which state, so she was famous in which state. So such questions are being asked. Okay, so that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much. And if you like our work, please subscribe our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. So we are going to come up with more such sessions, so that would be more and more informative for you, and that will also help you in your preparation as well. So that's it. Thank you.